Next, let's right-click on the Source Indicators query and find the option for Reference. The Reference Query function creates a new query in the Power Query Editor using the output of the query it references. And this is where it's really helpful to think of queries in Power Query as a linear sequence of processes. Power Query will perform whatever transformations you tell it to against the original query first. Then it will take the output created by the original query and use that as the source of the new query. So whatever changes you make in the first query will automatically flow from the output of that query to the input of the second query. Here we'll see a new query appears in our queries list called Source Indicators 2. Now let's update our recipe by filtering down to just the land areas indicator. Open the Filters control for the series code column and find the AG land total K2 value, unselect all the others, select this one and then click OK. Now let's further narrow the scope of this data by filtering the year column on just the year 2020. I'm gonna find the first row with the year 2020, right-click, go to Number Filters and select the Equals option. Finally, remove any extra columns that we don't need such as series name, series code, and year, and then right-click and remove columns. Then we will rename the indicator value column as land area. The result is a table that is one row per country and only contains the land area figures for each country from the year 2020. Now let's try something that's related to the reference function we just learned, and that is our duplicate query function. When we right-click on our query, you'll see that duplicate and reference are located right next to each other on the menu, but they perform totally different functions. Whereas reference will create a second query that references the output of the first query, the duplicate function will literally recreate the first query step for step. First of all, we're going to delete the step where we renamed columns, delete where we removed columns, and then we're also going to delete the step where we filtered on the year 2020. Then let's edit the step where we filtered on the land area indicator. And instead of filtering for land area using an equals operator, we're actually going to filter against. So we're gonna actually try to exclude land area by using the does not equal operator. Then click OK, and what we get is a table with one row per indicator per year but only containing the GDP and population indicators. Land area is no longer in this table. Finally, let's do some quick renaming of our queries. Change Source Indicators 3 to just Indicators, and then let's go to Source Indicators 2, and we're gonna call this land area by country 2020 and parentheses. Now let's reflect on what we've actually accomplished here, because it might not seem obvious at first glance. By using the reference function, we effectively took the output of the original Source Indicators query and split it off into two brand new tables, each with its own separate set of data. I like to think of processes like this in terms of upstream queries and downstream queries, and these terms are very commonly used when talking to data professionals. In this case, the Source Indicators query is our upstream query, and our new queries are the downstream queries, and sometimes doing certain data transformations against the upstream query can create more efficiency in Power Query. If you have a set of transformations that need to be applied across multiple tables, you can perform those operations in an upstream query and then use the reference function to split the results of those transformations as needed. The downstream tables then benefit from having those operations performed in one place in the upstream query instead of requiring you to duplicate those operations across 2, 3, or however many downstream queries. Okay, let's break here, and in our next video, we'll show you how to merge queries.